pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. See a prayer. Precious Lord God, we just thank you for the freedoms that we have in our country and the great community that we have, dear Lord, and we pray for direction and guidance as we meet or about the community's business, dear God. We do pray this in Jesus' name. Amen. All right. And whenever Mr. Acomb is ready to call for the roll.
Mr. Federoff?
Here.
Mr. Bariak?
Here.
Ms. Flesser?
Present.
Mr. Granchi?
Here.
Ms. Stemper?
Here.
All right, I don't believe we have any special presentations. Public comments, and this is limited to agenda items only, so give your name, your address, in 3 minutes unless previously requested additional time when we have one individual, and that's Mr. Curley.
Mr. Curlin, 611 North Canal Street, New Falls, Ohio. I'm speaking on a couple of things today. First of all, I'd like to speak for a few minutes on the police levy. I am supporting the police levy. I think from what I've checked into, that it really is the only way to make sure that our police department is kept whole. I noticed that we have recently promoted Brandon Frank to provisional sergeant. That I thought was a good idea. I also hear from the records that our chief of police is working midnight 10 days. I think we're at the point where we have to do something to support the police if we're going to continue to have a police department. I think the question of what it's going to cost was cleared up by the city when they put out the different range and how to calculate what it would cost you for a 4 mil. But I checked with the auditor, and what the city put out is what the auditor told me. They're preparing a website now, from what I understand. If you can call and they'll literally tell you what it's going to cost you. But there are a couple of points, but it's not complicated if you want to figure it out. But really, for $100,000 house, and understand there are many that are more than $100,000 in Newton Falls. But there are many that are less than $100,000 in Newton Falls. You're going to average about $140 per year for a formula. Now, if you qualify for the Homestead Act, which is 65 and over, and meet the guidelines financially, if you are a retired veteran on 100% disability, those are different things that will qualify you also for the Homestead Act. And for a $100,000 home, that will cost you $105 a year. I think it's a fair issue because if it doesn't pass, I believe the chances are very great that we'll lose the police department. And for what we're paying right now, we almost have to have more. That's why I noticed the ordinance that Mr. Granchi put on there. I find that intriguing. I'm just curious why you put that on there. I'm sure we'll get that. The other thing I want to speak on, and this is in reference to Mrs. Stammer, maybe she can help me with this. I received public information requests from the school. And the reason I did that, I was under the understanding that the fire district was looking to buy our field. quote, but one thing that led me to believe they were serious about buying, this is from the schools.
Mr. Kerwin,
Yes,
if you could save that for the second comments, okay? Because I don't see that anywhere on the agenda.
that doesn't, I don't have to have it within 10 minutes.
Okay, correct.
And I'll quote what they said. I will be recommending, this is the, Mr. Christopher, the temporary superintendent. I will be recommending the approval of a land appraisal fee for a company to assess the value of Arlington Boulevard property. As previously discussed, the Newton Falls Joint Fire District is interested in purchasing the field to properly to be able to build a fire station to house their large ladder truck. I support the fire district. I support the rest of the district. But if they're just building something to house a ladder truck, they have free property on First Street. It's not being used. I would think that would be more than appropriate. They would probably be able to build something for the place of the land. I'm wondering why we didn't know that. The other reason I'm not in agreement with this, that field is used by different groups and organizations which deal with children. Now, it's hard enough in this town to find activities for children. And if that field goes under several different programs, there now, I will be in attendance at the next fire board meeting, and I will be in attendance at the next school board meeting. But I don't understand, according to this quote, they plan on buying a house ladder. First Street's free and clear. It might even make a suitable place, because I believe some of it's concrete. That would save money to house their ladder truck. But to take that, because if you're going to field, you're not going to be able to respond by going through the covered bridge. So you're going to go around anyway. I'm just perplexed by it. Perhaps someone can explain that. Again, I encourage everyone to support the police levy. I believe it is interesting, and I would be anxious to hear Mr. Branch and why he put this on. Thank you very much.
Okay, anybody else?
In 80 West 9th Street. I wanted to catch you, Chris, before you knew it. Just to clarify what your agenda says, what your thing on the agenda says. 85% of the money collected from this police levy would vote yes, will be definitely towards the police. That's not good. Okay, now I'm reading it wrong. Okay, you'll explain. Thank you.
Mr. Richards?
John Richards, 212 Howard Street. And I wanted to speak on the ordinance Mr. Randy has. I support the police levy. I really do not want to have to call an outside entity if there's a police problem, if there's a crime problem, if there's any type of problem that would involve the authorities. I like the idea that we have our own police department. And I think what Mr. Granchi has proposed is a help, if I understand it correctly, because there are some people who doubt, they think it's going to be like the Ohio lottery was, when they supported school, And it was really like a sleight of hand because money was taken away. And this just ensures that that won't happen. That at least, if I understand it, the language is 85% of the fiscal year 2022 expenditures, which would be greater than the amount of money that comes in through the levy. So there would be additional money on top of the levy money supporting the police. And I can't emphasize enough how important the police are to this community. I like the fact when I see a cruiser go through the neighborhood. I like the fact that every policeman that I've ever approached, other than when I was young, but has responded appropriately and courteously. I think we need the police department, and I thank Mr. Branch. I think this is a help, if I understand it correctly. I appreciate you doing it.
Okay, anybody else?
Alan Zimmerman, 515 Monday Avenue. Just first of all, a couple quick, questions or points about the agenda itself tonight. We see that Sister Rocco is still listed as a first ward council member. Can we please get that corrected? And also further on, if we look at the back for executive session. According to this, we're going to enter executive session at 7:02 p.m. tonight. When's your time? Plus, we have all the boxes checked for personnel matters, appointment, promotion, employment, promotion, or dismissal, plus purchase or sale of property, plus pending or imminent court action. That's an awful lot to discuss in executive session. We always see these boxes checked. I'm just curious, did one person call for an executive session already? Or is this just in the hope that we may need to go into executive session like we've seen in the past? A resolution 40-2022. A resolution authorizing the city manager to enter a real property donation agreement with Newton Falls EOHP LLC. My question, I would hope that someone could explain who or what Newton Falls EOHP LLC is and why we would want to donate property to Newton Falls. I just need some explanation there, would be appreciated. In ordinance 2022-44, I just want to stress that if you want any hope at all, please let me pass it tonight. I urge you to pass this ordinance. As you all have heard, without this ordinance passing, there is no hope whatsoever of that levy being passed. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, if not, we'll move on to reports. And Mr. Federoff, do you have anything for Ward 1?
Well, I'm going to leave Tessa talk about the treasury investment meeting. She's more familiar with it. Basically, this was my first treasury investment meeting, and break it down to where I could understand it. We were entering into a lot of different investments that, quite frankly, we shouldn't have been. And there's been some changes to give us more of a long-range investment to hopefully protect us a little bit against inflation and possible recession. But I'll let Tessa talk about that if she would. I also attended a park and recreation meeting. Can't really say much was out of that. The only thing I got is here we have two people that are talking back and forth, one of them taking notes. And I asked, why don't we have three people? And they says, well, council voted to have just one. They had a super majority to do that. Well, to me, that doesn't make sense because the charter says specifically how many people there. And council, I don't remember seeing it on the ballot as to where people voted to change their structure of Parks and Rec. And I question the ability of a supermajority of council to change what the charter says. Also, I had some questions on zoning procedure. Talked to a gentleman over on Ridge Road, having a problem once again with the sidewalks being not repaired by a company that was contracted by the original company that put the cables through. We still got a problem with that. And also had a call from a constituent over on 9th Street, and they were talking about, basically worried about having a halfway house in their residential area. Well, tonight, one of the things we're discussing will be the zoning, and that over there is an R1, private single-family dwellings, and no, you would not have a halfway house in that. So if someone thinks a halfway house is entering into their neighborhood, get a hold of the zoning department. We've got a very competent man on board now, and he'd be able to answer your question as to whether or not that would be accessible. After, hopefully, this gets passed with compliance with the Ohio Revised Code rather than kind of a hodgepodge we had before. Hopefully, this problem will be something in the past. So that's really all I got done.
Thank you. Mr. Borak, do you have anything for Ward 2?
Yes. There have been 2 no trucks down on Olives and 2nd Street posted. Now, it's not to stop local traffic from a UPS or FedEx. You cannot stop local delivery, but that sign itself means no semis. Hopefully, they'll see them from now on, and they won't take that little shortcut which ripped down a lot of wires, made a lot of my constituents very angry. I was happy to see the city manager and the law director appreciate it, got right on it. I attended a utility review meeting. We made a decision, and I'd just like to not to get into a big discussion, but I want everybody to know, because there's been questions. Dunkin' Donut is moving forward. We've had very quickly, we're still checking the remediation. It has to be checked every 30 days or so. Also, we're lining up the electric. I want the people to know that we're moving forward as quickly as humanly possible to get that up and running by next year. We want to do that. I don't think I have anything else. Let me see. I'll wait. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Ms. Butzer, do you have anything for Ward 3?
I do. I believe, according to my notes here, we did have the Treasury Investment Board meeting on the 24th, and unfortunately, I really don't have much more to elaborate on other than the meter group. Eileen does a wonderful job at managing the investments, and she did go into a lot of explanation for us, and I feel confident. Right now we're dealing at a time where the market is volatile. We don't know what's going on, between inflation and other things that are happening in the economy. We will be meeting again, I believe, in December. Our last meeting for the year will be in December. But right now, the investments are doing what they should be doing. They're holding their own and holding steady. And then also on the 24th, we had the town hall meeting for the Scott Street Sewer Project. And I want to say that was a very well-attended meeting. There was a lot of people in here, a lot of participation, and I think this is the step that they needed to take in order to start moving forward with the grant processes for the Scott Street Sewer Project. I don't have in my notes what day exactly was the Park and Rec meeting, but we did have a Park and Rec meeting. And one other thing that I've been working on is I was able to secure a donation from Repurposed Materials for the Park and Recs for the community. It was a very nice, sizable donation, and I do want to make sure that they know we appreciate that. That's all.
Thank you. Mr. Granchi, do you have anything for Ward 4?
Yeah, I didn't attend any committee meetings. I didn't have any in the last couple of weeks, so I didn't do anything like that, but there's a big influx of calls, messages, and everything that I've been fielding in that amount of time, so that's all. That's really all I've been up to.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. Stempert, do you have anything?
Yeah, just a couple of things. I met with Mr. Housley on August 10th to discuss some budget issues or concerns, or try to clarify some information. We had a fire board meeting on August 23rd, but I had a last-minute emergency, so I was not able to attend that. And their next meeting will be September 20th.
Mayor, may I ask a question? Sure. Mrs. Stemper, how long did you know or didn't you know about buying the Arlington Field property, and why weren't we notified if we did know?
I think that's kind of taken out of context.
What's that? Can you speak up?
It's taken out of context. The fire board chair had asked me if I would be able to get him the contact information for the superintendent because they were looking at property. We have property in 2 or 3 different locations. We do own First Street, but there has been numerous conversation for many years about having it like soil samples done. So those things are all being looked at. To my knowledge, there was no formal conversation had.
They're not going, they're not going with an appraisal?
The school?
The school board getting an appraisal?
I have no idea. If they are, they are. I've not been in any contact with anybody in that.
Did you know, ma'am, that what was stated on the floor, our comprehensive plan calls for the inevitability of that down there around that area to be a park?
That is irrelevant in what I'm doing on the fire board. I made no contract or no involvement in it other than to give Mr. Christopher Mr. Nimitz' name.
Thank you.
Is that what you have to report, Mrs. Stemper?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Housley, do you have anything to report for finance?
Sure. I've got a few things I wanted to talk about. First of all, I did meet with Julie on August 10th at 2 o'clock, and any one of you council is welcome to meet with me on any Wednesday when I'm here, or Saturday. Just make sure Pam knows. I mean, she's let me know that she has no problems with me meeting with any of you. She'd like to be present if she can, but she doesn't require it if she can't be. She hasn't been that way. Another item I'd like to mention regarding the Treasury Investment Board is, I do want to thank Eileen Stanek from META for coming out. She did do a great job for the META group. I don't expect her to show up at every meeting quarterly, but I imagine that she will zoom in if that technology can be made available, and she will prepare a report for us. I wanted to mention that not all investment advisors, like the META group, share the fiduciary responsibility, the same fiduciary responsibility as your fiscal officer does, and they do. So that's a good characteristic of future investment advisors should this community ever decide to migrate away from the META group. I want to mention that I've been informed that one police cruiser is in. We haven't received possession of it yet, but I presume, and maybe Pam's got a little bit more information to give you on that. That month-end August is closed. July is reconciled. All vendors are paid current, to the best of my knowledge, right now. That currently, through the end of August, our income tax collections are $506,000, and that through the end of August 2021, they were $512, so down about $6,000 year to date, or about 1%. That our general fund ending cash balance is currently, at the end of August, is $57,000. July was $49,000. So it's just trickling up a little bit, still not substantial enough for a community of this size with the type of finances that it has. RETA has completed their 2022 income tax program, where they look back 6 years. they sent out 2 letters, so all of the delinquent filers received 2 notices already from Rita. One was just that they were delinquent with filing, and the second notice was where, for those that didn't comply with the delinquent filing notice, they were actually issued an administrative subpoena and asked to bring their tax records in. So they've received 2 notices, and I have a summary of that program, which I intend to go over with you at the next council meeting. But now we're into phase 3, which is where we're going to bring it in internally, and we're going to get involved with our own letter campaign. That'll be the 3rd notice to these delinquent filers. And I would like to ask that if anybody receives a letter addressed from either Rita or Newton Falls to a resident that may have moved out, if you're aware of it, contact the finance department here, or contact Rita, and just let them know that they sent a communication to someone that has moved out. It's very costly to send out the letters and get involved with all the investigative work, so every bit of help from anybody that knows. You don't have to open the mail, but if it just comes to somebody that's no longer there, if you notify the finance department and or Rita, it will save costs in the future. I dealt with one taxpayer over the last couple of weeks. She contacted my office to request an abatement of penalties and interest, which is a common request by taxpayers. And I talked to Rita a little bit, and they sent me a communication. And what they said was Newton Falls has given Rita full authority to grant abatements. Now, that doesn't mean they blanketly grant abatements. They have their policies that they follow for granting abatements. And that, any resident that has a question regarding their penalties and interest, or would like to request reduced penalties, interest, or request to have those abated, they've got to do that through Rita. Through the Rita Member Services Department, which is on all the communications that are sent out to everybody. And I want council just to kind of be aware of that, because it's a very common question. Rita deals with that, we don't. At the end of the tax review, if a resident wants to challenge the tax, then we'll form a committee here and we'll listen to that challenge here. And with that, I conclude my report.
Any questions, comments for the finance? If not, we'll move into the law director. Mr. Bryant, do you have anything?
Yep, thank you, Mayor. We have 2 ordinances on the agenda that would propose to amend the zoning code, and I would recommend that after council takes action on those ordinances tonight, that they be referred to the Planning Commission, since they're zoning ordinances, for their review and comment, and to then refer it back to council. That's all I have, Mayor.
Okay, anybody have anything for the law director? If not, we'll move on to the city manager. Mrs. Pretty, do you have anything?
Yes. Tomorrow is the bid opening for the paddling grant. So it's at 10 a.m. tomorrow morning. My understanding is that we've got 3 people who potentially could be bidding on the project after it was reviewed and they redid the specifications to be more in line with the grant that we would be receiving. So tomorrow is the bid opening for that paddling grant. As Councilman Bariak said, we're moving forward with Duncan, and I think it's important for everyone to know that originally the agreement that was signed for the engineering was approximately $43,000, almost $44,000. Mr. George and I discussed that, and I asked him to go back to that company because we had a competitive quote lower, and Mr. George did do that, so that's been reduced to $38,000 instead of the $43,000. We've been working on some utility department updates and new policies and procedures, so that's moving along pretty well at this point in time. The application for Scott Street for the forgiveness loans has been sent in. So now we're just waiting to hear whether the project's going to be approved. So probably sometime, I believe in October, we'll know for sure if that's going to be approved or not. The application for the roads that we discussed with OHM has also been submitted. So again, just waiting for that. We probably won't know anything until next June or July on that anyway, before there's, we know if we're approved or for whatever dollar amounts. I attended the Park and Rec meeting also, and there were a number of issues that Laura Beth had sent from Park and Rec on different areas of the park, and the maintenance department has been fixing those and taking care of some of those issues. They also had questions regarding fees for the pavilions and, things like that. So we're looking at possibly doing that, but at this point, it's still in the beginning stages, so we're not really sure what's going to be presented to council at this point. But, it's always been a first come, first serve with those pavilions, and I'm not sure at this point whether it's a good idea to charge or not charge. We've got to do some research on it to see how that would work. I met with the fire chief. We went over a number of different things, and it was really a good conversation. So the city and the fire chief will be working very closely together on a number of different things. The Treasury investment meeting went very well with Eileen. I think she's very informative. There were a lot of good questions asked, and she answered them very point blank. I think the investments at this point are doing very well. And so I look forward to seeing how we end up at the end of the year. But we're gaining some interest back that was originally lost from those bad investments. As Sean had mentioned, one of the police cruisers is in. We have not taken possession of that cruiser yet. It has to be detailed yet as far as, sirens, the cages, that kind of stuff. So it has to go to another company to do all of that. So we actually have not taken possession of that vehicle yet. Also, the school resource officer, the school, actually, we went to 2 officers at this point with the school, being SROs. And the city is receiving $114,000 per year for those 2 resource officers, which should help with some of the police department issues, which is a good thing. I'm glad we were able to work with the school and get all those details ironed out. The other thing that's going to be happening is Mr. George has a number of stumps that need removed throughout the city, so we're going out for bid for the stump removal. So we're putting those documents together to get that ready to go out. So I think Councilman Bariak, you had asked a question about a stump. Somebody had called you. Or Chris, okay, Chris. I knew it was one of you two. And so, yes, that's all going out to bid so we can get those stumps taken care of. Some of them apparently have been around for a long period of time. So as soon as that's completed, then we'll be removing those stumps. And that's all I have.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, if not, we'll move on to changes to the agenda. I do have one item that I'd like to see if somebody would make a motion to put it on the agenda for tonight, and that's to have a trick or treat set for this year for Saturday, October 29th from 4 to 6 p.m.
So moved.
Okay,
I'll
Mr.
second.
Granchi made the motion.
Second.
Okay, so whatever,
Just, can I interrupt you for 1
Sure.
second? Just so everybody knows, I believe the cakewalk is from 2 to 4.
it is,
So,
that's exactly
yeah.
why it would be at that point
Yeah.
in time.
So everybody knows it's on the same
We've
day.
traditionally done on Saturday that way, that people in the public, we were given ample time to know what we're doing, so.
Right.
We have a motion, we have a second, and it'll be the very last item under new business. So if, whenever the clerk is ready to call for the roll.
Mrs. Fletcher?
Yes.
Mr. Granchi?
Yes.
Mrs. Stimpert?
Yes.
Mr. Federal?
Yes.
Mr. Bariak?
Yes.
Okay, so that's added to new business. Does there anybody else have anything else under changes to the agenda? Okay, if not, we'll move on to approval of previous minutes. do we have a motion to approve both the regular meeting minutes of August 3rd and the emergency meeting minutes of August 19th?
So moved.
Second,
Mr. Granchi, Ms. Spletzer, is there any discussion on that?
if I may. Yes.
Go ahead.
I did call the clerk earlier this afternoon and pointed out a couple of the typos that were noted in the minutes. And Mr. Sirocco's name no longer appears on the Ward 1 seat, Mr. Federoff. I believe you were there. And Mr. Granchi, you're still Mr. Granchi, not Mrs. So a couple minor little typos that were tended to, and they're fixed, so.
Maybe
That's all.
maybe he sees himself as business.
Happens to the best of us.
Any other discussion? Okay, if not, whenever the clerk is ready to call for the roll.
Mr. Federoff,
Yes.
Mr. Bariak,
Yes.
Mrs. Spletzer,
Yes.
Mr. Granchi,
Yes.
Mrs. Stemper.
Yes.
Okay, minutes approved. Under public hearings, first item is ordinance 2022-37, an ordinance authorizing the sale of a village 2013 Ford Taurus police vehicle to the Newton Falls Joint Fire Department. Would anybody like to speak on that? Okay, if not, item closed. Okay, and then the other item is ordinance 2022-38, and it's an ordinance establishing section 121.06 of the administrative code pertaining to the sale or disposal of municipal personal property. Would you like to speak on that? Okay, if not, item's closed. All right, under unfinished business, same two items, ordinance 2022-37. Do we have a motion on that?
Make that motion.
Mr. Bariak made the motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Mr. Bariak, you have the floor.
All I'd like to say to the public tonight is that the fire district had to put $2,300 into that car to get it back running. I had stated that before on the floor that it was going to be at least a couple grand. They spent $2,300 to get it running. So it needed a lot. And I hope that this passes tonight, I hope, because they need it. And I just want to let everybody know that